Hi, this is Drew Styling. Welcome to what I believe, hopefully, is the 20th episode of Adventures in Job Searching. Thanks for everyone for liking, following, subscribing, sharing, coming on the show. Just so much fun. We've been doing this a couple months now, and it's been awesome. Our guest today is Leika Hightower, who works in the customer experience space and is on the job search right now. Like I always say, this is a podcast you never want to be invited on. But that's the world we live in. There's always going to be people that I can invite. So Lika, tell us about yourself, what sort of career work you've done before in the customer experience space.
So a little bit about myself. I am currently based in Dallas, Texas. I have been in the customer experience space for almost 12 years now. I started off working in health insurance with Medicare patients. So going through benefits, prescriptions, claims, all of that. That's where I started at. Then shortly after that, I moved on to the personal electronics tech space. So helping people set up their new phones, troubleshooting computers, doing all of that good things. And then I took a little bit of a steer off the path and started
Hmm.
and I worked in the electricity, oil and gas industry.
Mm.
So working in retention for spaces. And most recently, I worked at a prop tech startup, leasing software. So we had clients were top property management companies. They utilize our software in order to have their applicants apply for their apartment. So I've worked in a
Mm.
little bit of every space that you could imagine. I've dealt with customers of all different backgrounds, and just honestly, I've learned a lot from each field that I've worked in.
Hmm. Is this something you were like deliberately like, oh, I really like working with people. I'm going to kind of focus my career on that. Or is it more just before you knew it, 12 years had passed and you were in this space?
Honestly, I enjoy working with people. If I'm being honest, my dream job is anything centered around people, whether that be customers or employees or a mix of both. People
Mm.
are very interesting. When you work in the customer support space, you get to meet people of all different backgrounds. You learn things even that may not be relevant to your specific conversation, but people tell you a lot about themselves. To be honest, some of the most interesting things I've learned about life and some of like the side adventures I've taken, I've learned from like just speaking with people on the phone or in
Hmm.
person. Yeah.
So you're like a very unpaid therapist then, right?
You could say that. Yeah. Sometimes people call in or reach out, they just want to vent. Like sometimes there's not really a problem I've learned, like in customer service. I know a lot of people say customer service is worth it, especially phone jobs. But if I'm being honest, sometimes people just want to vent. They don't have anybody in their personal life they can talk to. So they're like, let me just call up customer service and just talk to them. I've had times where I've been on the phone with someone for like an hour and they're just telling me their life story, and as much as you would wanna hang up on them, you realize through the conversation, this person has been wanting to get this off their chest for a really long time. Let's just let them vent. If there's one thing that my grandma taught me, she taught me that it is good to just be nice. We all have one thing, like we have some things that we can do for free, but kindness is free. And sometimes, like,
You
just
sound
be
like
kind.
Mr. Rogers right now.
I love Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm a Pittsburgh resident, so he's our local hero there. He filmed the show there, so we love him there. Is there one, you talk about that people open up way more than you can imagine. Is there someone from maybe 5, 7, 8 years ago that still sticks in your mind of that was a really fascinating customer I interacted with?
Yeah, there was actually this guy. He was an old radio personality. I can't remember his name because it was like when I first
Mhm.
started. But he had called in and he originally was just calling in to inquire about his bill. But when I was looking at his account, I noticed like, hey, like I noticed that he was like on an older plan. And so in the midst of that, while I was working on his account, I was talking to him and he said something. The conversation started because he's like, I don't know if anyone ever told you this, but you have a voice for like radio. And I'm like, huh? That's the first time I ever heard
People
that.
people tell me I have a face for radio, but
Oh, that is don't listen to that. But
haters gonna
I
hate, right?
Yes, they are. And for me, we just kind of talked and I asked him, I'm like, what do you mean I have a voice radio? He said, you have a very calm, like just the tone of your voice is just very, like it just flows very smoothly. Like when you're talking to people, this flows. And I asked him, I'm like, did you ever work in radio or are you just an avid radio listener? He's like, no, in my small town, I used to be a radio personality.
Mhm,
He was telling me how he met some of like, this was like back in like the 80s, and he met like some of
mhm,
like those top like stars back in. And he was like, he just like, honestly, he was just telling me a little bit about his life, how he got to travel, meet all these different people. And I was just like, it sounds
mhm,
like you had a very interesting life. And so I asked him, I'm like, so are you like when you met those people, did that encourage you like moving to like the big cities? And he was like, no, he's retired and lives on his ranch in the middle of nowhere. And I'm
mm.
like, I love it. It sounds like you had a thrilling life and now you're just like, nope, I'm gonna live out the rest of my days in peace and quiet.
And after he told you that, do you feel like that cheered you up a little bit or put a little spring in your step?
Yeah, I honestly, like I said before, love just hearing about people's backgrounds. Like you never know. Like we pass people on the street every day, but you really never know someone's story. So when people take the time out of their day to just share unique things about their life, honestly, I'm appreciative of it because they honestly don't have to do it if they didn't want to.
Mhm. So thinking back of kind of when you first got into this space, what do you remember about kind of the early interviews? Do you remember, as you started entering the job market, do you remember yourself being nervous, interviewing coming naturally? What was that like?
Well, when I first started, I was right after high school. That's when I got my first
Mhm.
like big girl corporate America job.
Right.
It's right out of high school. And I was very nervous for my interview. And I was just like,
Mhm.
what if they don't like me? I'd never done it, like done an official interview before. So
Mhm.
having to go, and this was back when we did interviews in person. You have to physically go in person with your resume, make sure you look your best. You sat in that waiting room while you're waiting for someone to come call you to the back, and then you sat across this table from someone. And
Right.
that was the most intimidating thing I think I've ever done was
Of
sitting in
course.
a room with a person who had the ability to just pass judgment
And
on
they're
me from like,
judging you. You know they're
yeah,
judging you.
from like a 15 to 20-minute conversation. It's like, what
Yeah.
exactly? And they had the notepad. And so I just
Mhm.
remember the questions being asked, like, why do you want this job? Why are you here? And it's
Right.
like, to me, I'm like, is it not obvious? I want to
Right.
work.
Well, why did you want that job? Maybe it's not so obvious.
To be
Was
honest,
it
I
just the
wanted to
money?
work. I wanted to work, yeah. I was fresh out of high school. I was a part-time college student. I needed some extra funds, but
Who
the
doesn't?
the yeah, the honestly, the campus jobs were not paying a lot. This job was
Right.
paying $15 an hour, and this was back in like 2014. We all know that that was back then. $15 an hour was a lot of money, especially for a
Heck
college student with
yes.
no bills, still living at home with mom and dad, and it worked around my school schedule. It's like maybe 10 minutes from the university I was going to.
Oh,
It was
awesome.
perfect. Everything just
Yeah.
felt like it was right.
Mhm. So, before you went into that, like those first interviews right after high school, had people been giving you advice about what to do in the interview, or did you like look it up online, or did you just kind of like wing it and hope for the best?
So at the time, I had actually just recently finished up a college prep program, and one of the things that they did for graduating seniors was actually helped us with interview prep, not just for college interviews, but also job interviews, because some people didn't, they didn't necessarily want to go to work afterwards. Like
Hmm.
they don't want to go to school, or if they went to school, they want to do like a community college program, trade, that type of stuff. But we did do a couple of mock interviews. The only problem was it didn't really, I felt like it didn't really prepare me for the actual thing, simply because I had already known these people. I had got to know these people over the past 4 years.
Hmm.
So this was like talking to like a family member or a friend. It didn't really feel like talking to a complete stranger who had no idea who I was besides what they saw on a piece of paper.
Hmm. And do you felt like when you went into that real interview room for the real job interview was what was the mood then? Were the scaries floating through your body or what?
I was very nervous. I will say the butterflies were in my stomach. I was just like, what? do I do? Like, what if I mess up? What if
Mhm.
I slip over my words? Are they gonna cut me off and tell me to leave? Like, I had every worst thought that you could have imaginable playing through my head. However, when the interview started, the
And how do
lady
you
told
tell
me,
those thoughts to shut up?
honestly, they didn't shut up till I actually started talking to the interviewer.
Okay.
I think that she
Right.
honestly sensed that I was nervous, so
Hmm.
I was able to. She was like, I just want you to tell me about yourself. And so I
Hmm.
think being able to like talk about myself kind of eased the nerves, and she wasn't just sitting there staring at me. She would ask follow-up questions, which made it made it more of a conversation than an interview after it was
Hmm.
all said and done.
Yeah, those seem to kind of be the easiest ones when it's not like you're being drilled like you're in a police interrogation or something.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like most of the people who have the mispleasure of being on this show, you have that, and like me as well, you have that green, the scarlet, or I don't know, the green letter, not the scarlet letter, the green letter on that LinkedIn profile, the open to work. And so if you don't want to hear from me, don't put up that banner because else I'm reaching out. How are you feeling right now? You're on the job search hunt. What are the vibes these days?
Honestly, when I first lost my job, I was very discouraged. Honestly, came out of nowhere. I came in on a normal Monday. I was like, it's time to get to work. I had my coffee, had me a little bagel at my desk. I was ready to get to work. And then I got a dreaded Gmail calendar notification. And I'm like,
Ooh, we don't
what
like
could
those.
what could be? But it felt really awkward. Like it felt off. Something in my spirit didn't feel right about this random Gmail meeting being put on my
Was it for the
calendar.
same day?
Yeah, it was for the same day. It was literally for 30 minutes after I clocked in. And I was a little bit like something in my when I saw it, instinctively accepted it, but just like accepted something in my spirit just didn't feel right. And I'm like, hmm, I don't know. And it's so funny because I had told my husband like the day before, I'm like, hey, I don't know. Like something just is not really feeling like right with work, but maybe
You
it's
and
just
you'd been there several years, right?
several years. And
And this was a startup, right?
yeah, it was a startup. I've been there, like the startup had only by the time I joined the company, the startup had only been in full effect for about 2 years. And now when
Yeah.
they were finally starting to expand. And so being that I was a part of that support, that customer experience team, when I started the support team, it was only me and one other person. We started on the same day. So we went through training, and by the time I left, we had about 20 reps total. So being
Mm.
from the first two to the day I was let go to 20, it just felt like I had so much of an experience. But I remember getting that email, and then when I got in there, my feelings were confirmed that something was off because normally in these huddles, it was usually just my project team manager, no one else. And then I saw my skip level manager, and I'm like, yeah, I already know what's going on. What's going on. And they started off and they were like, this isn't usually the same.
You should have like faked an illness, fake vomit, sneeze attack, allergy reaction. So be like, I gotta go home. I'll be back in a month. Keep paying me.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, but I actually just came from back from maternity leave about six
Mm.
months prior to losing my job.
Mm.
Oh, so
Popular topic on the show these days,
yeah,
apparently.
maternity leave. I don't think too many people understand that not all companies, but a vast majority of companies, it feels like as a mom and as someone who happened to be the first woman in our company to actually go on maternity leave, um, it felt like coming back to work, honestly, things didn't feel the same before I left. Like
How did they
if
feel different?
so before I left, I was working on a lot of projects. And when I came back, I was expected to, give myself about a month to kind of like get back in the groove of things, shadow some coworkers, catch up to see like where the projects were before I actually like retook over leadership of those things. However, that's not what happened. I came back and the
Mm.
first couple of weeks it was like okay, shadowing, doing like multiple check-ins with my managers. a week, still attending like, different meetings, just trying to catch up on stuff. But then towards like that month of me being there, I'm like, okay, hey, I'm ready to jump head first back into where I left off. I feel like I got my foot in. I feel like I'm back up to date with everything that's going on, everything that's changed while I was out. Ready to do it, but that is not what happened. It was more so, oh, well, if you have some input for this project, instead of co-collaborating, it was like, oh, well, I want you to write this up and then send it to so and so, and then they can give them their feedback. So I felt like kind of like I was expected to still contribute, but I didn't have. I kind of felt pushed out, like more so of a yeah, give me your ideas, but it's not really your project anymore. And that was a little bit discouraging because, again, before I left, I was working very hard on those projects. And I did my best to make sure that everything was aligned so that when I returned, it would be more of a jumping back in to where I left off instead of feeling like I'm having to start from the beginning or trying to like squeeze myself into things. It just really felt,
Mm.
and it felt like if I'm being honest, it kind of felt like I wasn't really wanted, if I'm being real.
Why did you feel that way, you think?
Maybe because like I said, working for a very small startup, and before I left, I actually found out that my job didn't have a maternity leave in process. Like they didn't have a parental
Mhm.
leave process in place. And the leave process wasn't even put in place till probably like 2 months before it was time for me to take my leave.
Yeah.
So that already felt a little bit weird, and then coming back, you are honestly trying to refine your footing, reconnect with your coworkers, pick up where you left off, just absorb all of this stuff, but also get back to your duties. Work was honestly an escape from motherhood for a little bit. It was nice to get back and be able to turn off that mom hat for a little bit and go back to being like that was my creative space. I enjoyed work. So I enjoyed being creative. I love like diving into
Solving
problems.
problems.
Yep. And also just like giving feedback, like even if it's something that they haven't thought of, like, hey, I think this might make the customer experience a little bit better. I'm hearing this from our clients, or they're wondering why this
Mm.
process is so difficult, X, Y, and Z. So it was nice. But then to see all of those ideas that I had come up with be essentially given off to someone else and thinking if we all know in corporate America, usually once a project is passed off to someone, that person is getting credit. It doesn't matter how much work you've put into it, doesn't matter if you're the reason that the project was started. A lot of times, more times than none, you lose all credit. You lose all of that. So that was that. And then it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right if I'm being honest.
Did you ever get the sense that because you took maternity leave, your company felt like you weren't committed to the company or your work or your career?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit, and I say that because, like like I said, when I would bring up stuff to my manager at the time, it was heard, but it wasn't listened to, if that makes sense. Do you know how people say, like, there's listening and then there's listening and understanding? I felt like in my one-on-ones, my manager was just like, "Hey, yeah, how are you feeling?" And I'm like, "Feeling good, but I have X, Y, and Z concerns." "Okay. Well, I'll look into those for you," but we would never, like, touch base with those again.
Did it
And
seem like, once you got pregnant, did it seem like their commitment to you as an employee and their interest in hearing from you started to drop? Do you sense that?
not while I was pregnant,
Okay.
more so when I came back from maternity leave, and I'm not sure, it could have been a combination of things. Number 1, leaving, a startup, especially with you have such, like, a small team. When someone like goes on a leave, that work has to be
Right.
transitioned to other people until that person gets back. And then also coming back, accommodations, when you're a new mom, you need certain accommodations in order to like make sure like your day to day. So having some accommodations, like one of the things I used to have to ask was that, hey, my daughter needs to go for these checkups. I'll be
Yeah, I mean, you're in
offline
charge
for
of
two
keeping a
hours.
human being alive.
Yeah, and you can't. It's not like I could be like, oh no, I'm not bringing her in until she turns a year old. no, can't do that. So having to take time off or extend my day or push start times for things back because I have to take care of my child because again that's required. But my job was always let known ahead of time. Like I'm talking about when I scheduled her appointments, I let them know, even if they were months away, like, hey, I'm gonna be out on this day for X, Y, and Z amount of time, or I'll be starting early on this day and leaving a little bit early because I have to do X, Y, and Z. So it felt like those accommodations, I kind of felt like, yeah, we'll do it because,
Some eye rolling.
yeah, kind of like, yeah, we'll
Her
do it,
again.
but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I don't think I can deny her because I don't want any legal repercussions. So I'll let her do it, but it didn't feel like I had the same, like, I don't feel like I fit in my team as much as I did prior to me.
Did you feel it? So is it fair to say you felt like you weren't valued as much? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Hmm. And so you kind of said even the night before you got, that Gmail invite, the dreaded invite the next morning, you said something to your husband, you just kind of felt like the vibes are off. When you're in the room, when you got that news, what was going through your body? Do you remember any physical sensations in your body when you first heard that news?
I remember feeling physically sick because hearing the words,
Mm.
"You're terminating your employment," nobody wants to hear those words.
Hmm.
And all I could think about was my child. How am I going to take care of my child in this economy? Just because you lose your job, bills don't stop, responsibilities don't stop. So knowing all of those things. And the crazy part is, I'm a pretty private person when I'm working. Like, I'll let my employers know of things that are necessary for them to know in regards and how they relate with my work. But I do try and keep like life separate from work, even though sometimes it does intersect. I do try and keep personal life problems. I remember a couple of months, my manager was like, well, I want you to open up more. And when I heard that, I'm like, what do you mean you want me to open up more? Like, she's like, well, if you just tell me about things that are going on, that allows me to help. And ever since that conversation, I felt like, I don't know if I want to do that because a lot of times I feel like employers use that to garner ammunition in order to give a reason to let someone go. Like, I don't really feel like that is, I truly want to know what's going on so that I can better help you. It's more, how is what you have going on in your life going to impact your ability to work? Or how can I foresee that? So that like after having a couple of like discussions with my manager about just some things that were going on with my daughter and things of that nature, hearing that I honestly felt a little bit betrayed as well because I'm just like, what was the purpose of you guys asking me to open up and me letting you in just for the reasons that we're sitting here and that we're having this conversation? It doesn't feel like you guys actually wanted to know what's going on. It feels like you guys were actually taking down ammunition to give a reason to have a
Weaponizing it.
reason. Yeah, weaponizing it.
And so you're in the room, you get that news, you say your body feels sick, you're thinking of your daughter. How long did that meeting last? Did it feel like it lasted forever? Did it like were you even able to process what they were saying to you?
If I'm being honest, it lasted 5 minutes. I was in the midst of everything, with all the emotions,
That's a
I was
long
just,
time for something that painful though.
it is. And part of that was just, most of that was just listening to them name off the things and apologize. Like, I'm confused.
Hmm.
Why are you apologizing in
Yeah,
the midst of
what
letting
were
me
they
go? That
apologizing
doesn't,
for?
like, oh, I'm sorry. I know you have a daughter and stuff like that. And it's like in the midst, that doesn't make sense. That's a contradictory state. Like you're saying
Right.
that you're sorry for letting me go, but you're letting me go. And it also felt very off guard. Um, because it's like me, I have a open door policy. So one of the things that I tell any manager that I work with, and even my coworkers or even subordinates that work under me, hey, if anything about me, if you have questions about anything about me, ask me. I'm an open book. I'll let you know what's going on. And if something happens or you feel like a little bit conflict, let me know. Like, let's have a conversation. Because I believe that a lot of times we can have like misunderstandings. So it's good to like, I like to be on the same page, but I also want people to know that I'm willing to answer whatever questions you have, especially if it's going to make our working relationship good, because that's important to me. So, like I said, the conversation lasted 5 minutes because I couldn't allow myself to just sit there and continue to have a conversation about something that impacted every area of my life. Because losing your income it's a feeling that I wish nobody has to have, if I'm being honest. But it's also a feeling that so many people know all too well.
Do you remember anything specifically you said to them? Were you angry? Did you want to rage? Did you just want to get out of that room? What was going through your head
I
in terms of,
honestly told
they're
them,
apologizing to you.
yeah, I honestly was just like, I can't have this conversation right now, and I the last thing I remember them telling me was like, "Hey, someone's gonna email you about sending back your equipment." That was the last thing I heard, and I was just like, "I cannot have this conversation right now. Like, I literally don't have the capacity to have this conversation because in the midst of you trying to tell me all of these exit things, have this exit interview, ask me these questions about how I'm feeling and stuff like that, and then to say like, if there's anything that we could do for you, let us know." Like, sweetheart, what do you mean? Is there anything? If there's anything that you could do for me, let you guys know. You could have let me keep my job. That's what would be ideal. Or we could have had a conversation if there was, because to be honest, they didn't really go into details about what led to the decision to let me go. It was just more so, we don't feel like you can support the role in its capacity anymore. But that is such a very vague statement because
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. But the part that threw me off was prior to us even having this conversation, I literally had just had a one-on-one with my project team manager 3 days before I was fired. And everything was good. She was like, "You're doing a good job." She was like, "Thank you for your feedback." In that meeting, we had talked about some things that I talked about support volume. At that time, we had 3 people leave. And this was, mind you, this is a small project team. So our support department, our customer experience department had a total of about 20 people, but I worked on a special project team, and that team had 6 people, and then we had half of our workforce leave
Hmm.
um, for various reasons. And then we hired 2 new hires. However, one of the new hires was only there for 2 days, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm going to go take a different opportunity." So I had just let them know, like, support volume. I think we need to do just a little bit of readjustments to it while we, continue to get our new hire onboarded, and we also continue the hiring process. And if I'm being transparently honest, now that I've had time to reflect on it, I do believe that me calling out that might have been the ultimate reason why I was let go. Because as we all know, sometimes companies they will remove the people who bring up their problems than actually addressing their problems.
In hindsight, do you wish you hadn't called that out?
No, no. If I'm being honest, no. That to be very transparent, that was one of only very few times that I caught something like that out. But that was the
Hmm.
first time where it had negative implications. In the past where I've mentioned things like that, my managers have actually like listened, even if they didn't fix it right then and there, it was something
Hmm.
that they still would bring up or even like have the other members of the team elaborate on just to see if like maybe, hey, is Leika bringing up something that other people are feeling, but they're just too scared to like say something about it, things of that nature. So that was the first time that it ever had negative implications. But if I'm being honest, I am glad it happened,
Hmm.
because it honestly has shown me how not to handle a situation. As someone who's pursuing leadership opportunities, being in charge of other people, managing other people, it taught me how to do things differently, like how to be a better manager and how to better manage conflict. Because, like, let's just be honest, no one wants to hear that they're doing a horrible job or their current process isn't working. No one wants to hear that, especially not from your employees. So, honestly, I am glad that I spoke up. I am.
So, who was the first person you either called or text after you walked out of that room?
My mom. My mom.
Did you
I
call her or
called her.
text her?
I called her. So my mom actually lives on the other side of the country. And I called her. And this, mind you, this happened at 9 a.m. This was 7 a.m. my mom's time. And I had to call her a couple times. She's like, what happened? I'm like, yeah, I was just fired. And she's like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I was just fired. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I honestly don't know. And I started talking to her and she just helped me gain clarity on the whole situation. She's like, hey, things happen for a reason. Like, and she just reminded me, she's like, you are qualified for things. Maybe this is a push in the right direction. You talked about wanting to be in a more mid to senior level position. Maybe this is God pushing you and telling you, like, hey, I'm removing you out of your comfort zone so that you can go do something that you've been scared to do. And so honestly, now that I look back on it, that I feel like that was the truth. It put me in an uncomfortable situation so that I can actually go for what I actually desire. So instead of saying in a situation and just being like, okay, I'll get when they tell me it's time for me to move up to supervisor, then I'll move up. Now it's like, no, I'm actively looking for leadership positions because I know what I bring to the table. I know I've seen both good and bad managers. I've been able to hear feedback from coworkers and other employees who work within the same company or even other people who work in the same field about what they wish their managers would be like. So honestly, it's been a blessing in disguise.
So that sickness you felt in the room when you're hearing the news, was it still with you when you're talking to your mom, or did her words help calm that, you think?
It helped calm me down.
Mhm.
Because like I talk to my mom just about every day. So then I remember telling her like this year I want to move up into a different like more senior level role. And I was just like letting her know that they had they were doing a little bit of restructuring
Mm.
at the time and just trying to figure out how to make certain things scalable. So at that
Right.
time wasn't really an opportunity for advancement. And so
Mhm.
I told my mom, like, hey, by June, I'm gonna be in a management level position. Like, I want to be in a mid to senior level. Like, I want to be a supervisor. I
Yeah.
want to have my own like set of agents or employees that are essentially under me. And so she just reminded me of my words in our previous conversation. So that just honestly brought me back down to earth. And she reminded me, she's like, remember, God always provides. She's like, I know you're probably thinking about how's baby we're going to eat, how your bill's going to be paid, and all this. And she's like, just remember, God always provides. He never brings us to a situation that he won't get us out of. And I'm like, you're right. You are right. And she was right because even after losing my job, all of my bills have been paid on time, and my child is still very happy.
So was the husband the next call after that?
No, he was actually in the house.
So this all happened virtually, the getting let go,
Yeah.
is that correct?
So remote
Okay,
work.
so
I worked remote.
okay. So did he kinda watch it unfold then?
Yeah, he's so funny. He was actually in the room with our daughter. And then he said he heard my voice go up an octave. And so he came out to see what was going on. And then that's when he kind of like heard it being processed.
Mhm.
And he just waited. He just waited until I had ended the meeting, and then he was just like, "It's gonna be okay."
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. How has this period of unemployment, this uncertainty, how do you think it's affected your relationship?
Honestly, he's been very supportive. Every time, I've had a couple of like different things happen. like while being unemployed, I've had some conversations with recruiters. I've been ghosted by recruiters. I've received denial emails. I've received interview emails. I've kind of like gone through the whole thing. And every time something has happened, he's just like, you're gonna find what you're looking for. He's like, I don't want you to just settle for any old job simply because bills have to be paid. He's like, you are going to find that perfect fit. And until you find that perfect fit, keep searching. Like even if like I got a job offer for a temporary job and it's something that I'm definitely well overqualified for. It's a very entry level role. And I remember I was telling him like, I don't know if I want to take this job. And he's just like, well, if it's not the job for you, then keep looking. He's like, I don't want you to just settle. He's like, because if you just settle, you're gonna end up right back where you were. You're gonna start right back at the bottom of the totem pole. And I'm like, you're right.
How do you find the dignity and strength to not settle and to even, because having a job, it feels like, you're putting on a nice warm bathrobe, all right, I got this company around me. So how do you find the strength to not settle?
Honestly, because I know what I deserve. I feel like when you lose your job, it becomes very discouraging. Whether you are laid off, the company closes down, you're fired, whatever the reason is, it's very discouraging. And a lot of times we're just like we're so desperate to get back to something, but usually when that happens in the season of desperation, you're willing to accept anything. But then when you look back on it, you're like, wait, I didn't this is not what I really want. And I personally, for me, do not ever want to find myself in a stuck cycle where I feel like I'm keep starting from the bottom. It's okay to do that. I also think that sometimes, like, I remember when I first lost my job and I started applying for jobs, I was scared to tell people, like, yeah, I was let go from my job. Cause I feel like when you hear let go, people's automatic assumption is like, what did you do wrong? When in reality, being let go, you could be let go for any reason, right? We all know this. You could be let go for any reason under the sun. And so most people are willing to just accept what like the first thing that comes to them, especially if like the positions that they're applying for, they're getting rejected or they're getting ghosted. It's like, dang, am I asking for too much? But then I have just, like I said, not only myself, but my village is just reminding me like, no, you deserve what you want. And so you just keep going for it. You don't settle. If something is not working out, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to move. It's okay to try different things. And so that's honestly how I just keep staying positive throughout this whole journey.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about, the fear and challenge of saying getting let go. What about back in the day everyone talked about Facebook official when it came to relationships. What about making it LinkedIn official when you had to say, end of work January 2026, put up that green banner? Was that difficult?
A little bit. But
Why?
surprisingly, it was difficult just because I used to brag about the company I worked for all the time. Like all the people were like, dang, like you have a remote job, you can talk on the phones, you work in real estate, like all of these different things. They were just like, that's like you kind of have it. And then the benefits, not just what I did, but also the benefits. They're like, you have it made. You work in tech, like everyone trying to get in tech, you are just killing it. And then putting it up, it was just like, dang, like part of me felt like a little bit of a failure. And this is going to sound crazy, but every job I've ever gotten,
Hmm.
I never really had to interview for. I never really, it was more so like I was found by recruiters or I was referred by someone else and then offered the position. So never really had the full job search sense of things.
Yeah.
So it was new, and especially in this economy, everybody is looking for a job. There's so many people on LinkedIn that have open to work, and it's not even just on LinkedIn. It's expanded to all different social media platforms. On Instagram, you see people that have dedicated pages to helping people find work from home or jobs in general.
Hmm.
Threads. There are threads on there for
Yeah.
finding not only remote work or work from home jobs, but also tailored to like different career paths. Facebook has groups. So it's expanded. TikTok, there's people on TikTok that's like, hey, I found X, Y, and Z job for you. These are the qualifications. So to see
Hmm.
how many people are actively looking for employment, it honestly felt like, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not in this alone. There's so many different people that are looking for employment opportunities. And then also, I felt a little bit better. I would see people. I remember seeing this post from this lady, and she was talking about how like, she has two masters. She has worked C-level suite jobs. Like, so she's been on like the C-suite of a company. And the only she would do interviews. She applied like over 200 times. She would do interviews, and the only company that returned her call was Chick-fil-A. And she accepted the Chick-fil-A job offer. So she was working inside of a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And to me, that made me realize that there are people who are well overqualified than I am. They've done much more in their life, and they found themselves in the same exact position as me. So
Hmm.
there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
How have you been blessed during this job search?
Honestly, my village has been very supportive. Being around, surrounded by people who just keep encouraging me, telling me like when they're out and about networking and stuff, like, hey, this is so and so. I'm gonna send you her LinkedIn. This is what she's qualified for. Just speaking up on my behalf. Being supportive. Honestly, job searching is exhausting. It is not only physically exhausting, it's mentally exhausting. You are not only competing against other people, you are competing against systems, AI. I know everyone who has submitted an application in the past couple of years, especially in the past year, despises ATS. And you are literally fighting against a system that you have no ability to control, having to tailor your resume for every single job, having to tailor a cover letter. Just it's a nightmare. But having people around you that continue to encourage you and support you is something, and just having community is just something I wish that everybody had.
What would you say to someone who feels like, they're maybe out of work or they're just stuck in an awful job trying to job search and they feel like they don't have that community? What would you recommend for
I would
them that
recommend
they can find that?
putting yourself out there, don't get scared. I started when I lost my job, about a week after I lost my job, I started recording videos on my phone of me doing things scared. So me going out, putting myself out there and just networking and just putting myself in uncomfortable situations, talking to people about like one of the things I was uncomfortable about was telling people that I lost my job. I found myself talking to people like at the library, like, hey, striking up a conversation and then they're like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" "Oh, I'm recently unemployed." And after doing that a couple of times, I realized that, yeah, it's still a little bit nerve-wracking. However, you will never get the results that you're looking for if you don't do it scared. So right now, I'm in a season of just doing it scared. If you don't have community, go make your own community. Don't wait for it to find you. You go find it. And we live in a world where there are so many different ways to find community. You can find community in person, you can find it virtually. And if you don't feel like you want to do that, maybe start by just recording a video. And you can decide if you want to post it or you can decide if you just want to keep it to yourself.
Hmm. How have you been able to be a blessing to others during this time of unemployment?
In this time of unemployment, way of being able to be a blessing is if I find a job lead and there's someone in my community that I know is looking for a job and this will be a better fit, even if I'm not qualified for it or it's not something I want, I'm sending it to them. I'm referring them to it. For recruiters, if they're looking for a specific skill set and I may not personally have it, like, hey, so this person has it. So just continuing to not just not just give up, but being able to bless and contribute to other people that are around me, even in the midst of me trying to find my more permanent position at a company.
Looking back at your last company, and I think it was really notable that you said, people realized how much you liked it. Do you still have any anger or bitterness towards the people who made that decision?
Honestly, no. And
Really?
this is gonna sound a little bit crazy, but I'm grateful. I am grateful to them, to the company. I learned so much working at that company. I learned not only technical skills and career like skills about the company or about the industry that I was working in, but also skills about myself. I was challenged at that company. I did things that I honestly probably would have never put myself up for, but to have coworkers, managers, even people that were outside of my team be like, you would be good at this. I want you to do this. I want you to partner with me. So I'm grateful for that. That was also the first time um at a company where I was level to level with like our C-suite. So on the day-to-day basis, communicating with our CTO, our CEO, all of these people. So to be honest, I'm grateful. It taught me a lot, and it also showed me things about myself and about other people that I'm able to now take into whatever position I find myself. So no, I don't have any animosity towards those people. I'm not angry at all.
Was there any anger for a while after you got the news?
Probably for maybe like that first week, but that was just because I was just processing emotions. I was just trying to figure everything out, trying to make a plan for everything in that. And I hadn't taken the time to breathe and to actually reflect on what had happened and how I pivot. Like, how do I move forward? This has happened. There's no going back. There's no changing the fact that you are now unemployed. So what do? You just give up or do you pivot? And the choice was to pivot. So what can I do to make the situation? So that's why I say I don't have any anger for them because like I said, they honestly put me in an uncomfortable situation. But I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been a little bit over a month since I lost my job. But I've learned a lot about myself in this past month.
What do you remember? What was that first week like after you got that news on the Monday?
The first week, it was weird. If I'm being honest. I had for the past 3.5 years, a little bit over 3.5 years, I had a schedule Monday through Friday. I woke up, I went to work from 9 to 5, got off, and then did family life, whether I would be going on a walk, going to the gym, cooking dinner, etc. And so that first day, I remember waking up. I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, okay, I gotta get ready for work. And then it hit me like, you don't have work, sweetheart. And at the time, my equipment was still all set up because I was waiting to receive the box. So it was just like, dang. I remember trying to log into my computer afterwards just because like it did feel like a little bit of a fever dream. And then when the password didn't work, I was like, okay, no. So the first day was a little bit rough, and then each day just got better. So the next day, I got up and I took a walk. I said, okay, you got time to take a walk. I took a walk, came and made breakfast. Then the day after that, me and my daughter, we went to the library. Went to the library, and then right next to the library, we went to the community center, and we sat there, and I let her run around the little gym, and seeing her play, and then it just got easier because like being unemployed that first week, it really like helped me kind of like set a pace for how I've been going about my unemployment. It's allowed me time to do things that I typically would have normally not had the time to do because I would be at work. Being able to take my baby out for lunch and being able to take her to the park midday so she can go run around, meeting other moms. I've met some other moms who either recently lost their jobs or they're stay-at-home moms, and they have little ones like me. So honestly, it also allowed me to introduce myself to a new community of people. So it was a little bit rough at first, but it allowed for me to take advantage of things that I normally wouldn't have had the ability to do if I was actually still working.
It's beautiful. I bet you're gonna remember this for a long time. Just the
Yes.
the unexpected gift of getting to spend more time with your
Yes.
daughter than you might have imagined.
Yes.
If someone is listening to this and they just got laid off earlier today, what advice would you have for them?
I would tell them to first take a deep breath, breathe. We'll cry it out if you need to, but after you're done crying out, take a deep breath. And what I want you to do is I want you to honestly sit down and write out what your dream job looks like. And not just write out the dream position or your dream salary or your dream company. Write out the full details, not just the position, not just the salary, but what does the work culture look like? What does your coworkers look like? Write down the people, write down if you're in customer experience, what do the clients look like that you're working with the industry? How does it what does your work life balance look like? Does this job consume all of your day? Or are you able to do extracurricular activities? Where does this job take you? Just write all of those things out. And then when you start your job search, look for those things
Hmm.
and make sure and do not be this might be contradictory or a little controversial, but do not waver on those things. So if something does not meet those requirements, don't just take it simply because it's offered. And that's controversial because why would you tell someone not to take a job that's offered to them when they're looking for a job? Because you will find yourself miserable. You will find
Mm.
yourself miserable. And last but not least, make sure everything that you write down is what you want, not what someone else tells you. Not if mommy or daddy says you need to go to school to be a doctor. If that's not what you want to do not write down that you want to be a doctor. If you prefer to be an artist. But what kind of artist do you want to be? So make sure that you're like when you see yourself in that position, that it aligns with what your dream life looks like.
And what do you think the key is to figure out what that is? Some people might think, hey, that's good advice, but I have no idea.
Honestly, it's something that you have to think about over several days. For me, my therapist is actually the one who told me that. I told her, I was like, hey, and she's like, so what I want you to do is write down what does that look like for you? And she said, I want you to go in depth. And she said, I don't want you to try to fill this out in one sitting. She said, start off with what is your dream career? What are you doing? She's like, even if you don't know the specific title, what exactly are you doing? And elaborate on there. Be specific. And to be honest, it took me a whole 2 weeks to fill out everything because there were things that I wrote down. I'm like, hey, I'm making X, Y, and Z money. I'm working for X, Y, and Z. I'm doing, and then I realized like when I went back to look at it to add myself, I was like, I don't really want that. So crossed it out and added something else. So that's why I say just take your
It's
time.
okay
And
to
it's
cross out.
yeah, it's okay to cross out. It's okay to reevaluate. It's okay to do that. But you will when you look at that paper or wherever you do it on your iPad, your phone, when you look at that list, you will know when it's you.
Love that. That is so wonderful. What have you learned about job searching that you know now on March 5th that you didn't know a month ago?
There are a lot of fake jobs out there. There are a lot of companies who post jobs and make you go through the interview process with no intention of hiring. They do it for research, but they won't tell you that they're doing it for research. I also discovered that there are jobs out here that give people homework. They want you to do projects like free labor, and you
Hmm.
don't get to keep your project. It's simply for there. I can't remember the name of the company, but I read it and it was like, we want you to create a presentation for how you would resolve a problem that you think that we might be facing and send it to her. But in there, it says that it's their intellectual property. And I'm like,
We do not approve of that on
no,
adventures and
we
job
don't.
searching. Heck
We
no.
do not. So I realized that the
Forbidden.
job search is it's you are not only like I said, not only are you battling or trying to compete with other people, you are competing with a lot of different factors that you have no control.
If your bestie lost their job, if you get off this call and you find out your bestie's lost their job and they're like, you've done this for a month, what are the tips? What would you tell them the key to good job searching is?
Use different job boards. Look in the most unexpected places. So don't just Google project manager.
Hmm.
Scroll down. If you're gonna Google it, don't just click on the top websites. Go to those other ones. Also, utilize social media to your advantage. Go to those chat rooms or those groups. You'll never know you find and send connection requests. Whether that be you adding someone on threads and DMing them, or you adding someone on LinkedIn and connecting with them, but just think outside the box. And also
Hmm.
network. That's what I'm gonna say. Network. When you meet people, don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I'm unemployed. You never know who you're going to come across. You never know who you're going to come across in this world. People have connections. I've met some moms whose husbands are in business. And
Hmm.
you would know that if you didn't talk to people. So I would just let them know,
Hmm.
like, think outside the box
Hmm.
and don't get discouraged.
What grade would you give yourself in terms of how well you're job searching right now?
Um, a B. I would give it a B.
Mm,
And the only reason I say I would give it a B is gotten I've got more recruiter DMs than I've ever had before. My exposure
mm,
is much more. I've learned I've had very productive conversations with people all across the globe. So not just US based recruiters, but recruiters in other countries, recruiters from the UK. And when they read and I have these conversations, they tell me, hey, you're great, your resume stands out. But I've also learned things from other recruiters, thing conversations that didn't go well.
mhm,
Like I said, I was ghosted.
mm,
I had a recruiter schedule an interview with me. We were supposed to meet. I joined 10 minutes early because I'm very punctual. I like to be very punctual there, and they never joined. I even DM'd them on LinkedIn and I'm like, hey, we're scheduled for this meeting. I texted them at the number they texted me for, like, hey, are you coming? And they read and they never replied. And to be honest, I was very discouraged when that happened. But then I realized that I'm not going to give up. Just because this person was
mhm,
unprofessional doesn't mean that I'm going to hold all recruiters accountable. So that's why I said I'd give it a B. I've gotten some pretty good job leads. They just have turned out to not work out for me. Either the company, the pay, the culture, the employee reviews. That's something that I'm really big on. I love going on Glassdoor or Indeed and reading the employee reviews. I take those very seriously because these are people who have actually worked at the company. And I always read the negative reviews first. I want to see the 1 stars, the 0 stars, the people who disapprove of the company. I want to know their reasoning because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, those people are telling their honest experience. Now, mind you, you might
yeah.
get a little bit of disgruntled individuals in there once or twice, but I like to just really hear about the people that, like, from the people that have actually experienced working at the company.
Is there something that you're like, I'm not doing this in my job search right now, but I really should. I probably should do it.
One of the things, I think his name is Chris Pryor, but I just came across this post and he was saying that someone, like, one of his friends put him on to something called a pitch card, which is like a
Hmm.
30-second. It's like, I think it's like AI generated, but you put in like your experience and what you're looking for, and it develops you a pitch card, and you can send this pitch card to recruiters, hiring managers, all of these different things. And he just recently, after 2 weeks, he was let go from his job 2 weeks ago, and he is now the new director of marketing for
Wow.
a new company. And so I think that's the one thing I'm gonna try. I never heard of it prior to that, but I'm willing to try it. So
Hmm.
that's the one thing that I'm
I
not
love it.
doing. I recently started messaging recruiters. So just sending random connection requests like, hey, they work in the field that I'm interested in or for a company I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Let me connect with them. But yeah, that would be the one thing that I want to do differently.
Awesome. And I guess my final question, imagine that I'm the hiring manager for your dream job and it's you and two other great candidates. What are you going to do better than them? Why are you going to be the superstar candidate? Why should I hire you?
Given my years of experience in customer success, working from customers to also employees, I know what I bring to the table. I am open to new ideas. I love to contribute. I love cross collaboration, and I just want to make things better.
Awesome. That is so great. Leah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Great.
Bye bye.